recognize the member for Fredericton West Hanwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join with the Premier in welcoming our special guests here to the Legislature. As we know, today, May 8th marks 70 years since the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany and the victory of our Allied forces in Europe, known as VE Day. Now, in the Second World War, over 1,800 New Brunswickers made the ultimate sacrifice in this struggle against the forces of tyranny, murder, and oppression. For the last 5 years, we've been honored to have the company of some of our Second World War veterans here with us in the Legislature. And it is because of their sacrifices and those of many more who cannot join us here today that we and the people of New Brunswick enjoy our freedoms and liberties. It's often said, Mr. Speaker, that freedom isn't free. And here with us today, we have some of the people who have paid that price, sacrificed their life and limb, their time with family, their sanity, and their creature comforts to give us the freedoms that we enjoy. So we're honored to be joined by several veterans of the Second World War, and Mr. Speaker, it's with heavy heart that I note that their numbers are dwindling, but we are very honored to have some actual Second World War veterans here with us today, and I'm going to endeavor to introduce them all to the best of my ability. I want to begin with Mr. Edmund Martin, a good friend. I'd ask Mr. Martin to stand. Mr. Martin was a member of the Carleton, New York Regiment. He landed in Normandy on the third day and fought through the liberation of Holland, which we celebrate 70 years of as well this week. Mr. Martin, among being an infantryman, he also served as a dispatch rider and made frequent trips at night to make sure that signals were getting through. So I'd like to welcome you, Mr. Martin. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask Mr. Rolly Mansfield to stand, please. Rolly was born in Milton, Nova Scotia in 1928, and during the Second World War he served with the Merchant Navy. He later became a paratrooper with the Canadian Army Service Corps. Mr. Mansfield is joined with his wife Mary, who's by his side diligently making sure that he's taken care of, but Mr. Mansfield is a pretty independent guy, and he asked me once why I wasn't wearing my wings on my suit, and I replied I don't normally do that, and he said, well, he wears his paratrooper wings on his pajamas. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Mansfield and his wife Mary here to the Legislature today. Welcome. I'd like to ask Mr. Art Pottle to stand. Mr. Pottle enlisted in the Canadian Forces on July the 2nd, 1940, and originally served on Partridge Island and Fort Dufferin, where he manned heavy anti-aircraft artillery in Halifax as well. He was selected to be part of the elite commando force, which was a unique force, the first Special Service Force, which consisted of Canadian and American soldiers serving together in the same uniform, united under the same command structure, and they became known as the Devil's Brigade for their daring exploits in the Second World War. Mr. Pottle was a platoon sergeant, and he served in grueling action in Italy against some of Germany's most highly trained troops, and ultimately served as part of the liberation force that went into Rome on the 4th of June, 1944. Now, this first Special Service Force was awarded a number of awards, and you can see Mr. Pottle today wearing some of those. Most notable amongst them is the Combat Infantryman's Badge, which is a very highly held honor, which indicates that you served as an infantryman in combat. And as well, Mr. Pottle wears the Bronze Star, which is a very high decoration with the American Army. And as he served with the American Army, he's entitled to wear that decoration. As well, the first Special Service Force received a very high honor in that they were given the United States Congressional Gold Medal of Honor as a force for their incredible feat during the Second World War. We're very honored to have you with us here, Mr. Pottle, and I'd like to ask all members to join us in welcoming you. When I was growing up in Nova Scotia, my mother often referred to a book that she had read as a child, The Two Jacks, and I think it was part of the Nova Scotia curriculum. And it tells the story of two Jacks, Jack Van Ness and Jack Fairweather, who served together in the North Nova Scotia Highlanders. And we are honored to be joined by the widow of Mr. Van Ness, Frida Van Ness. And I ask Frida to stand. Frida today is here representing those veterans who can't be with us today, but are carried in the hearts of many. So I'd ask all members of the legislature to join me in welcoming Frida to the legislature. We're very honored today to have two national representatives with us. It is a long tradition in Canada that one mother or one survivor is designated the Silver Cross Memorial Mother. And we are honored to have Ms. Giselle Michaud and her husband Conrad Michaud here with us today. They were selected from the Silver Cross, yes, please do stand. They were selected from the Silver Cross families across Canada to be our national representative this year for the families of all those who've fallen in the line of service. In particular, the Michauds lost their son, their beloved son, Charles-Philippe Michaud, who died as a result of an improvised explosive device in Afghanistan. And it's a great honor to have the Michauds here. They're native New Brunswickers from Edmundston, very proud New Brunswickers. Donc, j'aimerais vous souhaiter la bienvenue ici à l'Assemblée législative. Welcome here, and I'd like all members of the legislature to join me in welcoming these two national representatives of our fallen troops. I also asked a selection of veterans to be here today. This is VA Day. We particularly celebrate and are honored by our Second World War veterans. As we know, there's the incredible sacrifices that these veterans made. We continue that spirit through a number of other efforts that this country has made to protect peace and stability and freedom across the world. And I've asked a sampling of those other veterans to join us here on the floor today. I do want to pay particular attention to Mr. Robert Tallenbach. I'd ask Mr. Tallenbach to stand. Mr. Tallenbach is a veteran of the Korean War, and you'll see by the medal around his neck, he's recently been recognized by the government of Korea for his personal sacrifice during that campaign. So I'd like to ask Mr. Tallenbach to be represented here on behalf of all the Korean veterans, and ask all members to join us in welcoming him here. I'd like to ask Mr. Bob Bellier to stand. But as you can tell from his beret, Bob Bellier is a proud member of our peacekeeping veterans, the Blue Helmets, and wears his medals proudly, one of which represents his service in Cyprus, where he served with the Royal Canadian Dragoons. And I'd like to welcome Bob here on behalf of our peacekeeping veterans. Thank you, Bob. I believe we have John Perry with us as well. Is Mr. Perry here? There he is. Mr. Perry served in Egypt in 56 and 57. He served in Germany in 66 and 63 as a member of the Royal Canadian Air Force. He's a proud branch number 63 Legion member, and it's great to have Mr. Perry here today. Thank you. Welcome. We're also joined by Major Fred Doucette. I'd like to ask Fred to stand. If you know Fred, you know he's a little bit shy, but he's no stranger here. He's a good friend of mine and a distinguished veteran in my regiment, the Royal Canadian Regiment. Fred served in Cyprus and most notably served 4 tours in Bosnia in what was some of the most difficult times that we faced in the last 20 years in Bosnia. And for his service there, he was awarded the Mention in Dispatches for an act of bravery. And Fred has since become a lightning rod for a lot of veterans issues, and he's published 2 books about his experiences, particularly his help to other veterans who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder and other operational stress injuries. Fred's a real leader in the veterans community, and it's a pleasure to have Fred with us here today. Welcome, Fred. Fred's also joined by his good friend and my good friend, Jerry DeVoe. I'd like to ask Jerry to stand. Jerry as well has been a real leader in the field of operational stress injuries and continues to provide peer support to veterans who struggle with those issues. Jerry is a proud member of the Royal Canadian Engineers, and you'll see by his regimental tie that he's an engineer to the core. And as well, Jerry served notably in Kosovo, in Rwanda and Pakistan, each of which had its own struggles and challenges. So we'd like to welcome Jerry here today. Thank you, Jerry. We also have Major Kevin Billingshurst. I'd like to ask Kevin to stand. Kevin originally served with the British Army in airborne forces there, where he served in Northern Ireland and the Falklands. And then he became a Canadian and serves proudly with the Royal Canadian Engineers, where he's a bomb disposal expert. He served with the Canadians in Cyprus, Pakistan, Bosnia, Kuwait, and twice in Afghanistan. And he's now part of the Weapons Non-Proliferation Team. Indeed, in the last 3 years, he spent 450 days outside of the country in 27 different countries. So welcome to Major Kevin Billingshurst. We're also joined by two of our seniors Goodwill Ambassadors, and I'd like to ask them to stand. We're joined by Kathy Sullivan and Betty Powell. As you know, these senior Goodwill Ambassadors they're distinguished citizens, and they attend a lot of events, particularly veterans events and events at the Legion, where they spread goodwill on behalf of the city and the province. So welcome to them today. We're also joined by Phyllis Chapman. Phyllis, could I ask you to stand? Welcome, Phyllis. Phyllis is a member of the Royal Canadian Legion Auxiliary, as you can tell by her distinctive white beret, and Phyllis has been in that role for 50 years now. So welcome, Phyllis. Thank you for your service to the Legion over those 50 years. As you know, history is a funny thing, and as our troops fought through Holland, as Canadian troops fought through Holland, at the end of the war, indeed, the fall of Germany was not long behind that. And this week we celebrate not only our victory in Europe, but our victory, the simultaneous victory in Holland. And Mr. Jerry Blom is with us. I'd like to ask Mr. Blom to stand. Jerry is the chairperson for the Canada-Holland Remembers Committee, which started in 1995. And every 5 years, he's led a celebration here in Fredericton. He's dedicated to this. He's from the Netherlands originally and now a proud Canadian. And he personifies that link, that strong link that exists between the Netherlands and Canada. So we'd like to welcome Jerry here and thank him for all the work that he does to keep the celebration of that liberation alive. Thank you, Jerry. I know we have a few more introductions to get through. I know the members on the opposite side of the House are used to hearing me introduce people, so I'll labor them a little bit more. But we have with us some community leaders that I'd like to ask to stand. First of all, Mayor Bob Powell. Bob is the Mayor of Oromocto, as we know, home to one of the largest bases in the world, and a significant training area here in Canada. And Bob has been instrumental in helping lead the Make Fredericton First campaign to bring the first memorial lab here to Fredericton. So thank you very much, Bob. Great to see you here. And we're also joined by Her Worship, Mayor Judy Wilson-Shee. Judy is as well a very strong supporter of our troops. She's working hard to bring a howitzer to the village of New Maryland to add a little bit of substance to their war memorial there. Judy's been working on this for a number of years, and I hope that we can get it across the finish line this year. And Judy has also been strongly supportive of the Make Fredericton First campaign. So welcome, Judy. Thank you very much. So we're joined by two representatives of the serving Canadian Forces, and I'd like to ask them both to stand. Lieutenant Colonel Vincent Giroux and Regimental Sergeant Major Chief Warrant Officer Bamford. It's a pleasure to have you both here today with us. These members and the guests that they brought with them to the gallery today represent our serving members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Both of them, as you can see, are veterans of Afghanistan and other missions. They both served their corps with distinction. In this case, the Royal Regiment of Canadian Artillery and the Lord Strathcona's Horse. So we have these two gentlemen here representing our serving military, and I'd ask all members to join me in welcoming them here. I got it. There's one more paratrooper here with us today, and I've sort of left the best for last here. I'd like to ask Colonel Bob Lockhart to stand. Colonel Lockhart is no stranger to many members of this legislature, having served our communities with distinction here in New Brunswick. Bob is a proud airborne gunner, where he served with a number of units, including the Loyal Company in St. John, and of course served this community with distinction on a number of positions, including as the Mayor of St. John. So I'd like to ask everyone to join me in welcoming our airborne gunner, Colonel Bob Lockhart, here to the floor of the legislature. And we have with us one man who needs no introduction in this legislature, our friend and colleague, Keith Ashfield. Keith, as you know, is a strong supporter of our troops, so I asked him to come here today on this particular day to be recognized. Keith also has emerged victorious from his own battle with cancer, and Keith, as you know, this is your house as much as it is ours, and Keith has served both the community of Fredericton and the province of New Brunswick with distinction for a number of years. So I'd like to ask everyone to welcome Keith Ashfield to the legislature. Hey.